So why don't we start with the financial security work group and George?
Okay, so yeah, so let me. I want to first thank the members of the work group who have been incredibly active and engaged, and not only during the meetings, but in between the meetings. And I invite any of the members of the work group, after I give a quick update here, to check me on anything that I might have missed or aired here. So we actually presented a draft policy paper at our last work group meeting. We have, I think, arrived at a mutual definition of financial security. I think we're pretty much there. And have developed an initial frame of policies and programs to address what we collectively believe will address our financial security objectives. From our last meeting, a couple, really important factors did come in. First is just a few things real quickly. First is to be sure that we tailor our strategies to certain specific populations, and that we do develop segmented approaches, to address our populations from a demographic and a geographic standpoint. So that was a persistent theme. Second was to look at this sort of full continuum and spectrum of financial security supports and systems, to look at what works and what does not work, and where the most prominent gaps might be. Third is that in addition to looking at a systems review, that we identify the sort of program design and practices that meet our target populations where they're at, and how we can move our target populations from financial safety to financial independence. So we talked about forming a sort of collection or a compendium of model programs that we really need to work together to promote. And the last thing, probably an overriding theme, is not only looking at coming at this from an even playing field, but tilting the playing field, kind of stealing Charlie's thinking there, tilting the playing field to our most vulnerable populations, and making sure that we direct our work from an explicit racial equity lens. So I thought it was a really robust conversation. We'll be getting together in the early new year. We'll have a refined policy paper to present to the financial security work group that in turn will lead to the action plan that Tom referenced. So that's our update to any members of the work group. Please, Charlie as a co-convener, or any member or any other member of the work group, please check me on anything that I might have missed.
I think you did a great job, George. Really.
Any questions for George? And obviously, and Christine, this is something else we've talked about in terms of the issues of poverty. And if there isn't some way to help people get some money in their pockets so they can have a place to live and food on the table and way to get a car, et cetera, and then we know what's going to happen. So this financial security thing, and just from what I've heard of the dialogue, it's pretty there are some conventional things that they're talking about, and there's some pretty unconventional things that they're talking about. And I think the sooner we get that draft paper out for everybody to take a look at, the better. But it's pretty ambitious. And George, thank you so much for your work. So before we get to because I think that the last two that I'm going to introduce, I want to introduce them together. But before we do that, my friend, colleague, and inspiration, Retha Onatiri, is on the call. And Retha, with Erica Harris, has been convening the Positive Youth Development Work Group. So Retha, I'll turn the floor to you.
Sure. So thank you, Tom, and good morning, everyone. So we really have a dynamic and outstanding group of people. There's 9 of us representing counties across the state. So it's really great to hear from folks who are from Passaic County and Monmouth County and Camden County, just to get a good feel for what's going on around positive youth development. Some of these folks are on the call. So, Kathy, Desiree, any of you guys who like to chip in, please do so. I think we've made great progress. We're meeting regularly. We met on Friday and Monday to take a look at a draft document that we've already put together. We've defined what positive youth development is. We define our target population. We're looking at, and our target age group. We're looking at best practices across the country to make sure that we are recommending the best of the best. We're taking a look at what's already going on in New Jersey around positive youth development programming to make sure that we're also picking the best of the best in New Jersey. I think we've identified about 5 policy areas that we really want to, emphasize and provide information on. Everyone in the group have identified areas that they have expertise in and will be writing. And I think we are on target to have a decent draft by the middle of January. Everyone have committed to input all of their data by January 14th. And so by mid-January, we should have I think a pretty good document. Kathy, Desiree, Erica, did I miss anything? And Diana, I see you also are part of our group.
No, I think that was very comprehensive and well done in a short time. Thanks, Rita.
All right, any questions? Jerry, did you have a, did I see your hand up, Jerry?
Yeah, Tom, thanks a lot. Just a quick comment, and that really had to do with the comment you made earlier about, traditionally, I think whenever there has been an infusion of funding from the feds that address really basic needs, housing, employment, the federal government always, as a part of that, infused funding in community development and childcare programs and other supports, because they knew that building housing and offering jobs is critical, but those structures rely on communities that are strong, that provide job training and job, opportunities and community development and childcare. So I just wanted to make that point that I think, and I do think that the Build Back Better is a notion that is built on that idea that you don't just put money in for new structures, you put in for supports in the community. And I think that's how this group has always been thinking. I certainly know, Commissioner Byer, that's your philosophy as well. I just wanted to make that point one more time.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. I'm as I'm sitting here, Christine, I'm thinking I'm working on a piece with a colleague about the psychology of how can we all sit here. Now we have tornado that's just killed like countless people. We got fires in the West Coast. We got floods all over the place. We have villages being moved in Bangladesh because they're being flooded. And it's happening to us as we're sitting here. And we're like trying to figure out a way to go about our everyday life without dealing with it. And I do think we have reached the point where we can. And I think that the ideas that are coming out of these work groups they're beginning to have a profound nature to them, that somehow if we can figure out how to agree on what they represent and then somehow come together across all these lines that somehow sort of build up among us, we have a chance to break through denial about what's happening to our country and to the world in a certain way. So these last 2 work groups, to me, are essentially the heart of family success. And I missed the first, the one that Kathy's going to report on, but I was involved with the one that Karen's going to report on, Fathers and Families and Parent Leadership and Community Voice. And these work groups essentially have to become the drivers for everything else we're talking about. And so much of this allocation that we're talking about is like, well, so what's county government going to do? How are we going to make sure the nonprofits get a piece and this one, that one get a piece? If we don't start with people and their short-term needs and long-term dreams, then we're going to blow it. So Karen, fathers and families first. You ready?
I am ready, Tom. Thank you. And I'm so glad you called on me first because I have a 10 o'clock call, so I'm watching the clock. Good morning, everyone. I have to say I'm really excited, and I shared this with Tom because the Fathers and Families Work Group is the newest one, and we were a little slow in building, but the momentum is now present. We had a great meeting on December 3rd, and I was really encouraged by the turnout of many of you on the call and the support of the group in really continuing the work that we need to do to recognize the importance of fathers and their involvement in family and child well-being. So I'd like to put out that tomorrow, the 16th at 2 p.m., we are going to meet. There's a core group of us who are meeting, but I open it up to anyone here who would like to join us as we begin to look at developing our policy statement and the action steps that we want to take from here. So again, if you're interested, I'll put my email in the chat. We have a Zoom call tomorrow, the 16th at 2 p.m. Anybody else that was on the call like to add anything? Kathy, Jonathan, I see you both here.
No, you did a great job, Karen.
Okay, great. So again, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you'd like to join us tomorrow for our first meeting to really begin the work, please feel free to join us. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Karen. You know, I'd like to thank Blake for joining, and it was so refreshing, Blake, first of all, for you to join. And then there was a question that came up that you guys have been working on a policy statement, and this group's working on a policy statement. And wouldn't it be amazing if we had one policy statement that we all worked on together? And your response was, yeah, well, there's no reason why we can't do that. So I really appreciate your participation in this group and the way that the way you've approached it. It's an example of what can happen if people just like say, we're going to figure things out together.
Sure. I'll just say that I'm actually on 3 of these work groups, and they're all doing really great work. And I'll say that I liked what you were saying earlier about how the work groups will come together and kind of, in a sense, merge the policies together to have that one statement, right? Because really in the 3 work groups, you're hearing the same idea, especially with family voice, whether it's youth, fathers, parents, so understanding that each of these groups is, yeah, they're working on great ideas and initiatives, but they really are, at the heart, focusing on a lot of that same important idea that they are informed by the folks, like the parents and the fathers and the youth. So it's going to be cool to see these come together. And I don't think you're really going to have to do a lot of work to really merge them much. You know what I mean by that?
Definitely. And we really appreciate your participation, and Commissioner Byer, we appreciate your having him join us because it makes a huge difference. It's really powerful. So the last work group report today is going to be from Parent Leadership and Community Voice, and who better than Kathy Rowe from Parents Inc. to lead that conversation.
Thanks, Tom, although I could take umbrage that we are last.
I didn't mean last that way, Kathy, but you have to bust me sometime during the meeting.
It's true. It was it was our very first meeting. It was a terrific meeting. We had a great turnout. And I have to say, it was like being in a support group, because oftentimes when you're working with, promoting parent leadership and shared leadership, you're constantly like the little voice in the room saying, well, what about the parents? Did anybody talk to families about this? And our work group, it was like we were all so excited to talk and share and not have to convince each other about the incredible importance of always having not only parent voice, but decision making, and how we can be more powerful. We shared a lot of definitions of what we thought about, was parent leadership. What did we think was shared leadership? Blake was able to update us about, some of the great things that they're doing in his office, especially with the youth council. We were excited to hear that. I mean, Ron really talking about, parents and education and, not just, about engaging parents, but the whole continuum of building parent leadership in all organizations and how to start that. And I'll just open it up to the group members and see if there's anything else that you guys want to add.
I thought the meeting was great. I thought the feedback was really good, and I think we're headed in the right direction. And I apologize, I've been off and on this morning. As you said, Tom, we're trying to live life as usual, but it's not as usual. It's not normal. I'm trying to, multitask all the time. But for the groups that I've had the opportunity to participate in, I think we're going in the right direction. And I like the idea of bringing all of the policy statements together.
Yeah, and I would also like to extend the invitation again to any learning community member that would like to join our group. Like I said, we're just starting. And so just email me and, I'll get you the next meeting. I'd also like to say it's the only work group I think I've ever been on that when we asked for a smaller group to work on our policy statement, every single member volunteered. So we're very excited.
Good. Ron, I know that you.
I was just going to say, if I could just finish with one last thing on the committee. I mean, it was an exciting meeting, and I think there's a lot to build on. I would say there was one element that came up in our meeting, which I think applies to this meeting, which is we often look at the communities and parents from what they need. Our parents and our community members have so much to offer. And the whole notion of starting from kind of a strengths-based place, what are the skills, expertise, and knowledge that you bring to the table, naming that and building from that actually creates a different dynamic in groups. And so in thinking about some of the earlier conversations in today's meeting, I'm wondering how we obviously we need to address gaps, but by starting from what can you bring to this? I think you actually open up a door that's different. And so I just wanted to put that into the mix.
Thanks, Ron. And I will say, we haven't, one of the things we probably need to do going into next year is revisit some of the values and the thinking behind the family success movement, because what you're expressing is very profound. And it also is the heart of why we started this in the first place. It was not doing more of the same to people. It was trying to flip the whole perspective. So I really appreciate your comment on that. So Jerry Costa, I wanted to let you know that you were not going to be leaving us. You may be retiring from your job, but you're not retiring from us.
Well, I'll give you my new email address. I love this. I love this group, and I love the energy and the vision. So thank you, Tom.
Good.
And I love the cheers image, Megan. Thanks.
So in a few minutes, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tim Carden. But before I do that, what I want to say is I think that this whole idea of collective impact, which means everybody working together and finding ways that we can agree together, but then taking action together, is really going to be the next stage of the development of this whole movement, the Family Success Movement. And it's not about the Family Success Institute, it's about all of you. And I think that as you hear from Tim, and we go into next year with our work groups turning into consolidated agenda, and then trying to take it out to the community together, and the legislation that now includes infants, Jerry Costa, thanks to you, and getting involved in local politics in a different kind of way that results in people who normally don't have a voice and getting what they want and need and offering what they can offer to be involved. This is only going to happen if we're going to be doing this together. Gloria, I take very seriously your recommendations about the FSI board taking positions, and I think that we will discuss that and take action on that. And so I think that this next stage of our work is going to be involved with, okay, we've done a lot of talking here. We've learned from one another. It's such a, invigorating and inspiring group. But all we've done is talk so far. So we're moving into a year, I think, of action. And the only way it's going to work is if we're able to do it together. So Timothy, I will turn the floor to you.
Thanks, Tom. The topic here is our legislative update. And I doubt there's anyone in this group who isn't aware that there's been a substantial change in the legislature as a result of the last elections. But the good news is that our two bills, our Bill of Rights for Infants, Children, Youth, and Families, and our Community Recovery and Family Success Act, are alive and well and scheduled for reintroduction in the legislature in January. The process that has occurred both before, during, and after the election has continued to demonstrate that these bills have few, if any, opponents in the legislature, that the logic of them is compelling. The challenge, of course, is that they represent transformational change that we've been discussing throughout this meeting and in prior meetings. And at some point that's going to meet with resistance. But we have continued to be informed by and informed the legislative bodies, the administration itself, obviously with Commissioner Breyer here, but also with Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who appeared in our last meeting and whose phrase sticks in my mind as to the importance of the Family Success Council, which was, when you're not in the room, you're at the table, bad things happen. And that commitment to community voice, to collective impact, to collaboration between agencies and between levels of government is gaining attention and momentum. To accelerate our efforts and to give them more impetus as we enter a new legislative era, the Family Success Institute has had an opportunity and has seized that opportunity to work with someone who both understands family success itself, was there really at its beginnings in Newark when working with Mayor Cory Booker, has since gone on to serve both Senator Booker and also numerous individuals in authority throughout the state, giving advice with that perspective in mind. And that's Modiah or Mo Butler, formerly Chief of Staff to Senator Booker, and now a senior member of the Government and Public Relations Group, the Mercury Group. He has been working with us and his colleague, Rabar Young, who also is steeped in the family success movement from its origins in Newark, are working with us to establish a strategy for both executive branch and legislative branch, understanding and embrace of that legislation. In my mind, going back to my earlier comments about raising our sights, we have continuing conversations here about whether we can fix a system or rebuild new. And there was an analogy that was not mine, but was presented by others under a webinar recently, of describing fixers as quite different from builders. Fixers want to fix and fine tune a system that's there. Builders want to take down and rebuild new. These bills really set a platform for rebuilding new, not discarding the old, not ignoring what's important that's there. But going back to Tom's point about our original study that said we're spending 90% of our money on treating distress and only 10% of our money on trying to enable and nurture success, which is what this body pursues with vigor and collaboration and integrity. These bills really create the foundation for that to occur on a statewide basis and allow for a Family Success Council that would include people on this call sitting side by side with our Commissioner Breyer and others in important positions at the state level as well as local government. So we have strong expectation that we are going to renew our legislative effort and accelerate it going into 2022 with the 2021 elections behind us. And that we're going to be successful. And I don't know if Mo, who had on his schedule to join us, has been able to join us yet. But
I'm on,
if
Tim.
not,
I'm on,
there
Tim.
he is. So I've given a brief introduction of someone who I think is now essential partner in this venture. And to give a better description of how we move forward from here, Mo, I turn it over to you, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Mo.
Hey, Tom. I see a lot of old friends on these squares on the screen. It's great to be here this morning. Thanks for having me, Tim. Thanks for having me, Tom. I've been working with Tom, and I see Charlie Venti and Beverly Lynn, and a number of people I've known for a long time. When I first started doing this work with Tom, who I call the architect of a lot of stuff we did in Newark over a decade ago, I didn't have glasses like him. Now I have my spectacles. I can't read without them. So I've been working with Tim and Tom for a very long period of time. When I first started working with Tom, it was Mayor-elect Booker's transition team, and beginning to look at sort of family success work, fatherhood work, and a Children's Bill of Rights, specifically for the city of Newark. And a lot of Tom's thinking, and to be frank, Charlie Venti's thinking at the time, informed sort of the architecture we put together in Newark during those days, to address family well-being and young people within the city of Newark. And so, I look back, I talked to Tom and Tim a lot about the work that we were able to do during those days. I mean, we began sort of the family success movement in partnership with Charlie Venti and the foundation he worked with at the time. We were able to partner with the Newark Housing Authority, with the city of Newark, local philanthropic community, with the county, to create a more rational approach to service delivery within the city of Newark. Was, as you all know, was not easy to do because everyone's so compartmentalized, everyone has their fiefdom. So I had to sort of break that apart to address what everyone ostensibly is in business to address, which is family well-being. But over the course of about 8 years, we were able to create numerous family success centers with partnerships with the county, with local nonprofits, with the housing authority, to address needs of families where they were located. And out of that grew not just family success, but out of that grew financial empowerment centers where people would come in to our sites. They would get their taxes done for free. While getting their taxes done, we would do a 360-degree kind of look and examination of what they were eligible for entitlement wise. And so people would come in ostensibly get their taxes done, and they would leave with health care, with an increased earned income tax credit and the like. And from there, we grew into a fatherhood center, which we were working with, formerly incarcerated males or, underemployed males, and sort of wrapping them in a fraternity model and getting them ready for job readiness, but also doing it while they're building a brotherhood and supporting each other in very difficult environments. So all that work, that was I always tell these guys, that was some of the most exciting, some of the most transformative work that I've done. And I'm still friends with a lot of the folks that I work with and we provided services to during that time. So when Tim and Tom came to me and said, listen, we're working on creating something more sustainable and also broader, sort of statewide, and more formalized throughout the state, and asked me if I could be helpful. I said, absolutely. So, you all had been doing the work. What you all do is critical to this, because what happens, and I think you all know this because you've been, doing this for such a long period of time, policy is made in a vacuum, and it's very rarely driven by practitioners, people that are on the ground who actually know how these systems work, and actually know how the delivery of them work, and in many cases, the inefficient delivery of those services. You guys know that intimately. And so like the work that you are doing, sort of informing sort of policy at the state that will ultimately benefit families is critically important. So that's why this group grassroots work is critically important in informing the work that you know, our policymakers make down in Trenton. So you all, Tim, Tom, you all did an amazing job of getting Senate sponsorship and assembly sponsorship, and in the last iteration of the legislative body, you know, to the floor. You had Jamil Holly, who was the assembly sponsor of the Children's Bill of Rights, and on the Senate side, you had Nia Gill, who was a co-sponsor, and the primary sponsor was Vin Gopal. There's been a little bit of a change in the Senate, and some change in the Assembly as well. So sort of different dynamics now that we're going to have to operate within. So the goal is in January to reintroduce this legislation. There may be different sponsors. Jamil Holly was not successful in winning his reelection. So we have to find an Assembly sponsor, which we've been in conversations with a number of people to sort of carry that mantle. On the Senate side, we still have Senator Vin Gopal, who was, you know, I think the world of him. He was able to narrowly pull out a win in his district, and you still have Senator Nia Gill. I think we can add to that, to be frank. And so we're going to continue to work with them, reintroduce. We're going to find a new Assembly sponsor in January, while at the same time socializing this with the governor's front office. I know that Tim has been in conversations, and Tom have been in conversations with the First Lady, and I believe there is a meeting coming up with the First Lady and the First Lady's Chief of Staff. We've been socializing it also with the governor's Chief of Staff, who understands this work intimately. He was actually Senator Booker's state director. And so, you know, Tom on many occasions came in to brief him on the work. We also have a new, it hasn't happened yet, but more than likely it's going to happen in January. We're going to have a new Senate President, Nick Scuteri from Union County. And so we've begun the process of calendaring in a meeting with him so that Tim, Tom, and whoever else is appropriate can, you know, sort of sit in front of him and his team and brief them on the work and get them caught up to speed, so that when we get to January, we can hit the ground running, and hopefully we have, you know, the support from the front office, we have the support from the Assembly, we have the support from the Senate, so that we can, you know, we can move this forward. So yeah, so we have a pathway. I'm excited about, working with Tim, Tom, and the folks that I see in the squares here. And now it's just, sort of execution. That's where we're at now, sort of executing.
Mo, thank you so much. And what I can say about Mo is, like, when he takes up a fight, he fights and he wins. So we are so delighted that we have Mo on our side, and it's back to the future, Mo. So we're so excited that you're here.
No, and I think this is like, and I told you guys, this is the appropriate time to sort of push this, have this conversation. There's literally hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars actually flowing into the state. And in my opinion, if there isn't direction, if they aren't informed by subject matter experts, we'll get what we've always gotten. So this is an opportunity, I think, for us to be helpful to those policymakers as they're making decisions around resource allocation. And I think that what we're proposing is a rational sort of approach to how resources should be allocated and services delivered.
Terrific. Anybody have any thoughts or questions for Mo? All righty. One of the things we have talked about is that, our learning community it's gotten pretty big, Mo, and they're connected to people all over the state. And so in addition to, the work with the legislators and the front office is building our support throughout the state. And I know you're very familiar with community organization, because I think I saw you in a film about that one time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's key. Like, you know, wherever your geography is going to be critical. Then we'll help you sort of organize around that. It's critical to, you know, inform your you know, local legislators, you know, about the work that you're doing, but also about the approach that we think is the optimal approach at service delivery and sort of organizing these assets and these resources. And again, we can't take for granted that, you know, they're subject matter experts. They aren't, right? I mean, they're dealing with 10,000 things, and this is just one of those 10,000. So to the extent that we can provide them with sort of the architecture around this stuff in a direction, you know, and also we need you to talk to your leadership around this as well. Sort of like, you know, 3 steps we need you to take. I think all that sort of helps. The more voices they hear from, the more experts they hear from, the more folks they hear from that are actually delivering services on the ground. I think all that stuff ultimately helps with the air support that we're going to be doing.
Terrific, terrific. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Mo, and we're really looking forward to next year with working with you and LeVar Young, who is Mo's colleague, who was operated the first comprehensive center for fathers in Newark. So this is an affair of the heart and soul and an affair of getting something done. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah. Charlie Venti, you haven't aged today, my friend.
So you know, I just want to say, I can tell you that this is real, what Mo is real, because not only in what happened in Newark did he manage and support and coordinate what was happening in the community, but he was the link to the policy, the funding, the business community, the mayor. I mean, he was in the middle of everything, and from like the middle of these spokes that created a tremendous movement in the city. And so I feel like reinforcements are here. So I'm very happy to see you.
Yeah. And also, Charlie, just historically, Christine, Mo actually started the first family success centers in the state. He was the one who, that's where they started. Then they spread across the state with support, obviously, from you and your department, but he ran the first one. So it's an exciting connection. Alrighty then. Well, I appreciate somebody.
Can we just have someone not unmute? Rosemary Libretto. Okay, move ahead.
Okay, so I know we're getting, you know, we've been here a long time, and I really appreciate everybody hanging in here. So just to close this meeting, first of all, thank everybody for, you know, hanging in and staying on with us. Going into next year, we're going to make a huge effort to highlight the work that you're doing, and we're hoping to do it in some very, you know, innovative ways. For example, Megan Lepore has been walking around Camden with a video cam, and I can't wait to see what she comes up with. And I see Desiree, who has joined us from Monmouth County, is going to be able to talk about this amazing work she's doing with kids who shouldn't be in emergency rooms, but have ended up there. So we're going to really try to highlight your work, even for some of you, you know, who don't want to speak up so much. You're going to speak up. So what I would ask is really dig into your heart and soul about whether you're willing to join this thing for real. That it's, you know, not just sit on a call like this, and I appreciate your involvement, but if we come up with position papers like Gloria has suggested, or if we're coming up with legislative you know, initiatives, or if Christine's got something that she needs the support from us, that she needs us to stand up for her, this is not going to happen without action. And I can't say that over and over enough. And then finally, what I'd like to do, it is, as I think it's become a little bit of a tradition, and this is something that arose out of the Cory Booker's interest in family success, is my dear friend, I have become to the point where I think of Thomas Owens as the oracle of the family success movement. And so in the last couple meetings, you have graced us with your last word. So going into the holidays and going into next year, how about it, Oracle?
And Tom puts me on the spot every time like this. But I'm just, number one, I just want to thank everybody for all the work you're doing. It's a fascinating to be on these calls, see how much is getting done. But at the same time, I just want to remind us, because I've had to remind myself, we came into this last year with a spirit of newness and renewal and doing new things and rejecting normal. And it's kind of just to remind ourselves not to get sucked back into normal. You know, things are still, normal still does not work. You know, so let's not, anybody, no amount of money or claim can tell me normal works. It doesn't. And like Tom was saying earlier, it really hit me the moment you said it, is that we're sitting here, you know, with the world on fire. And sometimes we're sitting there having conversations. And it's like flames. We're just like, yeah, and just keep talking, just ignore the fact that the whole world's burning around you. So it's important to remember that, because the people that we work with know that. The people that work with in New Jersey, they have family in India. They have family in Africa. They have family overseas. They have family in the South that are losing their homes. So it all resonates with them. So it's not like it's happening to somebody else. It's happening to their family. It's happening to our families. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of normal, is that we can sit here, even though we never say it out loud, but we can sit a tornado like we saw recently and think, wow, my prayers are with them. Don't do anything. Don't send $1. Don't just, oh, our prayers are with them. You know, but in the back of your head, you're like, oh God, I'm glad it wasn't me. But we don't want to say it out loud because we're polite. And I think it's time to stop having polite conversations about, like somebody mentioned something earlier about convincing politicians and convincing some of these folks to understand people, to talk to people. Yo, that's your job. That's like convincing, you know, it's almost like convincing, you know, an ice cream man to make the ice cream cold. It's just what you're supposed to do. I think we need to have a little bit more righteous indignation about saying this needs to happen for people, and be compassionate and empathetic to people for real, and not just because it's a job. So that's just, I'm bubbling with this, and I apologize for going off on that, but yeah, the world's on fire. So we need, either we're gonna be firemen or we're not. So let's make up our mind. Have a great weekend. Yeah, so Tom, you have it. Just remind us for that, as Martin Luther King said,
Yeah.
the urgency of now.
Exactly. Well, thank you everybody for you know, sticking with us through this call, and I wish everybody a safe and peaceful and happy holiday season, and get ready to jump, because we're jumping next year. We're jumping hard as we can next year. So thanks everybody so much, and see you soon.
Bye-bye. Happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
Bye, everyone. Happy holidays.
Everybody. Merry Christmas.
Happy holiday, everyone.